John Hastings is the host of the Wrestler Review podcast.
Now R.I.P. But
R.I.P.
Yes, still up online.
Still available. Checked out this morning. You guys did a great episode on the late great Sid Eudy, A.K.A. Sid Justice, A.K.A. Sid Vicious, A.K.A. Sycho Sid. One of the best to ever do it.
You're missing one of his other gimmicks.
Lord Humongous.
He was the original Lord Humongous in Memphis. For those of you who don't know, copyright law really needed to catch up to the professional wrestling business. And basically, if you were a bad guy in a movie wearing a mask, they did a version of you in Memphis, Tennessee until that wrestler left the territory.
Is the Mad Max series of films the most influential films in the 80s wrestling?
Absolutely.
I think it has to be, right?
It's the most influential series of films on things that no one realizes that's why that's a thing.
Yes. There's the Road Warriors, a.k.a. LOD, but like everybody stole that gimmick. And then also Lord Humongous is the name of the bad guy from the Road Warrior.
Guy, and that guy was played by Sid, and then also Kane also played a Lord Humongous.
Yeah, everybody had chaps and bondage gear at some point.
Now here's my question. What did Jim Cornette change the name of Lord Humongous to in Smoky Mountain so he wouldn't get sued?
Is that Unabomb?
It was Unabomb.
That's right. He turned him into the Unabomb, which the idea of the Unabomber being a massive guy is so funny because it's like, oh, wow, we couldn't catch this guy for 30 years even though he was 7 feet tall.
Yeah, wearing a hockey mask and bondage gear because they didn't change the costume of the character.
I think Ted Kaczynski would have been caught much sooner if he was the size of Glenn Jacobs.
Or never caught if I had anything to do with it.
Yeah. Sid made his debut in 1987. Tagging with Austin Idol, fighting Nick Bockwinkel and Jerry Lawler in Memphis. Also, wrestled with Dan Spivey as the Skyscrapers, and there's this great clip.
Considered to be the worst tag team to ever work with in the history of modern wrestling.
Ooh. There's an amazing clip where the Skyscrapers are fighting a jobber who is not selling for them. He is refusing to go down, and then they proceed to legitimately just beat the shit out of a guy.
It is so crazy because it's one of those moments where you realize how pretend wrestling really is.
Yes, because the guy keeps popping up, and they're doing wrestling stuff to him. They're not just like knocking him in the face, but they are picking him up and throwing him down as hard as they can, which eventually does take a toll.
Depending on that clip, then he just keeps getting up, and then they just start hitting him.
Yeah, and then they just start whacking the shit out of him.
It's pretty insane. What's so nuts is Dan Spivey was considered an unprofessional wrestler in the 80s when people were literally like shooting muscle relaxants into their eyeballs. And they were like, this guy takes it too far.
Yeah. Debuted in WCW as Sid Vicious, where he would join the Four Horsemen in 1990. He was billed by the ring announcer as being from wherever he damn well pleases.
I like attitude presented by wrestling. Like I always like the ECW, where people were from an ECW, like from the Bowery. And then you go there and you're like, he's just a nice block and a half.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
What are you doing? Yeah.
It didn't used to be, though.
What?
No, not in the 70s, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This was the 90s.
Yeah, but Sid was... He was just all intensity. That was kind of his gimmick more than anything. They would put things on him, but for the most part, he would just be like giant, crazy rage monster.
You don't have to do much when you're that big.
No.
You can flex your muscles and go, grrr,
yeah, dude.
And everyone's like, that's enough. You're scary.
But what is amazing about Sid and what's Sid's true impact is being maybe the kookiest dude. Not like crazy.
Yeah.
He's just a weirdo.
Yeah, he's kooky.
So, for example, him and Arn Anderson nearly stabbed each other to death with scissors.
I've got that here. So that happened in Blackburn, England. Anderson threatened Sid with a broken bottle, and then they got sent to their rooms by the security chief, Doug Dillinger. Sid then breaks a chair, takes the chair leg to Arn's room, and tries to attack him with the chair leg. Arn pulls out a pair of scissors. A struggle begins. Sid is stabbed 7 times. Arn is stabbed 20 times and is only saved by the intervention of 2 Colt Scorpio. Neither one of them pressed charges on each other, and neither did the Crown for some reason. England was just like, you guys are about to leave anyway, which is fucking crazy.
So fucking
crazy that 2 Cold Scorpios stopped a stabbing.
Yeah, that's true. And then, of course, the big thing with Sid, one of the worst injuries in sports, I think.
Oh, the fucking leg. Okay, he jumps off the second turnbuckle and lands more wrong than I've ever seen anyone land on their leg. Like, lay on your bed. Imagine you're laying on your bed with your toes face up. Now imagine one of your legs, the toes just fall to the mattress.
Imagine your leg, it becomes the number 7.
Yeah, it's
but in the wrong
so
direction.
Fucked. And it's the thing you have to understand about Sid's career his entire career was that leg break, in that he made a shitload of money in wrestling which is pretty amazing because he wasn't ever popular. He was just what the promoters thought a scary wrestler should be. So like Vince McMahon wanted to make him the next Hulk Hogan after the Ultimate Warrior, which is why they did that like changing of the guard thing. And Sid was just upset. He's like, no, I want to be a heel. I'm only going to be a heel.
Yeah.
And Vince McMahon hated him so much he had to be talked into bringing him back by Shawn Michaels and Kevin Nash because they're like, you don't have any other bad guy. You have to bring this guy back. And
Right,
he's like,
right.
Fine.
And then, ironically, when he beat Shawn Michaels, huge pop, even as a villain.
It's one of the craziest noises. I don't know. Sam, I assume you are a wrestling guy based on...
Sorta. Not as much as you guys.
That's so good for you. The thing you need to realize, you can watch this event that took place at Madison Square Garden. It's Survivor Series 1996.
Yeah.
And it's like an art piece because the crowd is reacting with such anger and no one in the ring is selling it and the ring announcers do not acknowledge it at all. And it never stops getting intense to the point that Shawn Michaels walks out and they've tried to mute this on edit and you just can't.
Yeah.
They boo him so aggressively and it's so insane because the commentators are like, big time reaction here for Shawn Michaels in New York. And literally a guy named Sully from New York. Fuck you! And then this tall blonde man in a leather vest comes out, and for some reason they're just like, that guy's got short hair and not long hair. That's our fucking guy. And Sid is the only guy that acknowledges the crowd the entire night, and he plays it so it's so interesting to watch. Like just from a pure performance standpoint of everyone's just trying to make the crowd go with them, and he's just like, yeah, fuck it. I'll do it.
Yeah. Well, and I also want to point out that Sid is the only person who gets their shit together during the Shockmaster incident. Everyone else, the Shockmaster falls through the wall. We've discussed this forever, but Sid is the only person who's not dying laughing and has enough wherewithal to go, I don't care who you are, boy.
What I also think is insane is the Shockmaster angle, that because of the internet has become so much more the crazy thing that happened in the build of that match, and not the fact that it was centered around that Sid and Vader blew up Sting and Davey Boy's boat.
Yeah, that's right. And that the Shockmaster, when he re-debuted, was a construction worker who came out to a farty version of Day Tripper by the Beatles.
And also was part of WCW for so much longer than you realize. Like,
oh, yeah.
You watch pay-per-views 18 months later, and they're like, the Shockmaster's still here. And they're like, the Shockmaster's still here.
I was reading some stuff online. They said that back in the day, Sid had a pet squirrel. So he's got sort of a Bob Ross thing going on. And
let me say this
at
to you,
some point,
to Americans. Never let anyone tell you your country isn't great. The amount of different pets you just can have here. In the rest of the world, fish, goldfish, hamster, gerbil, guinea pig, cat dog.
Yeah.
America, you can have a tiger.
Well, at some point, the boys in the locker room bet him that he wouldn't put the squirrel in his pants. And he did, and it did bite his penis, apparently.
Nothing makes me more think that the squirrel was like, that is just another tick in the win column for the squirrel. Am I correct?
Yes. Oh, yeah. Sid earned that. Absolutely. There's another great clip of Bret Hart during his whiny period going, that's my belt. He loses the belt to Sid, and he goes, that's my belt. You know it. I know it. Everybody here knows it. And Sid is coming down the ring, the sweatiest a person can be without just actively being hit with a hose. He's like, everybody here knows it. He says, I don't know shit, cry baby. And it's fucking great. Late in his career, Sid no-showed an indie event claiming that Donald Trump's travel ban prevented him from flying, even though there was no restrictions on Americans flying from one state to another. Amazing excuse.
So good.
I wish I had used that. Like, I would come, but, Trump banned everybody from flying.
The other thing, I said this to Rivers downstairs, but I will tell you, Sam, is the other thing with Sid that made him so amazing in wrestling is he just had another job the whole time.
Yes.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he just sold farm chemicals in his hometown in Arkansas.
Yeah.
So he was stacking money.
So also what would happen is they would be like, you got to show up on Monday. Vince wants to talk to you. And he'd be like, I'm not going to show up to get yelled at. I'll just stay here. And they were like, don't you need money? And he's like, no, I got another gig. And that's fine. it's just really sweet.
Nothing Vince hates more than a motherfucking guy who's
Independently
not desperate.
wealthy.
Yeah.
Nothing a boss hates more than a guy who just has the ability to say, I don't want to do that.
Did want to share just a couple classic Sid moments here.
This is the best one.
Here we go.
Sid, I've got a question for you. We all know that you can bring the heavy offense, but there are a lot of skeptics that think that perhaps you can't take it, that you can't take the punishment that Diesel will give you tonight. How do you address those skeptics?
Well, the skeptics and all the people have a little bit of... Let me do this again.
Oh, it's live, pal.
There we go.
I got to tell you, there is no greater tone of voice than Jim Ross's "you fucked up" tone of voice. Just let me do this again. That's live,
We're
pal.
live, pal.
Hey, man.
Yeah.
God bless you, honey.
Oh, that's exactly what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you're going to need to talk to Jesus. Well, you can get to him about that.
There was an angle right before the leg break where he was feuding with Goldberg, who kept smashing his cars in the parking lots. And
God
so,
damn it, Goldberg. And you act like the boat thing is crazy.
Yeah,
These guys
yeah.
been fucking with each other's cars forever.
How dare you say that about the Millennium Man?
and I don't mean smashing with a bat. I mean like putting him in a
Trash
compactor.
compactor,
Yeah,
yeah.
and this is Sid reacting to his cars getting squished on 2 different occasions.
What happened to my car? Go back! Where are you? Go back! Go back! Go
That was the end of the show. That's how they ended the show.
That was the end of the show, and they thought it was so great they decided to run it back.
Where's my car, man? All right, space 22, man. 22. 22! Oh, man! Oh, man! Oh, idiot! Oh, idiot! Go back! Where are you? Why me? Why me? Why me?
He's really got an attachment to these rental cars.
I know, and the first one, you could tell it's a car that's actually been compacted. The second one, they didn't want to spend the money, so it was like a car that had been cut in half.
To me, they both looked like props.
Yeah.
no,
You can't get a car that flat.
I don't think that this was so much a gimmick as they showed up at an arena and the guy's like, this is going to sound crazy, but I've got a flattened car and a half a flattened car. Can you use that for anything? And they were like, can we?
And then, of course, the all-time classic.
please.
Nash, you can wear any Halloween costume you want to, but you know and I know that you are only half the man that I am. And I have half the brain that you do.
And it cuts to Kevin Nash, who's wearing a crazy Sid Vicious mask in the ring, and they are
And
losing their
you
shit.
can see him laughing through the mask,
It's
if I
amazing.
recall.
Yeah, oh yeah.
What I enjoy about late era WCW is you get to see how truly unprofessional Kevin Nash and Scott Hall are as people. Like,
Oh yeah, deeply unserious people.
deeply unserious, deeply like the ethics of them cashing those checks and undermining everything to do with that. Where they're like, yeah, we got paid, and it's like, yeah, you know, some people had pensions with the Turner organization that no longer existed because you guys got Hulk Hogan drunk and told him to go yell at Vince Russo. Like,
I did want to point out the leg break, by the way. That was, according to Sid, John Laurinaitis' idea. He was like, you need to expand your move set. And I'm like, he's enormous. He never needs to get on a rope for any reason, but he was like, oh, go ahead and jump off the second rope.
it is, I have to tell you, it really shows the good heart of every human being in that people, like, everything you hear about John Laurinaitis is you're like, this guy's a fucking stooge, idiot,
Yeah.
awful moron.
Yeah.
And then you hear more truth about him and you're like, I knew it. And then people in the wrestling industry is like, Bryan Danielson has been like, it's been so hard. Like, he was my father. And I was like, I wouldn't trust that fucking guy to take care of an elastic band.
Yeah. Yeah. R.I.P.